Hi everyone, welcome to today's lesson on Inkscape. So last lesson we took our 3D model of our phone stand, we flattened it, we projected out the outside shape of it, and then saved that as a DXF file. Today we're going to learn how to import that, size it properly, and then move into creating the cut lines on the outside of it so it's ready to cut out this outline. Afterwards, the next video I'm going to show you how to take images from online, prep them to be laser engraved onto the face of it. So it's going to look, I think, really cool when we're done. Let's get down to it. So first things first, let's open up Inkscape. So it has a little icon that's like a mountain that's kind of turning into ink. That's where the ink part comes from. And so we're going to open that up and we get a file that looks like this. The first thing I want to do before I move on is I'm going to actually set up the file, the page size, to equal the cutting bed on the 3D printer or the laser cutter. That way I know exactly what I'm working with. So I'm going to come down here to File, Document Properties. I'm going to click on that. And then I'm going to come down here to where it says custom size. And I'm going to say it's right now in millimeters. I can leave it in millimeters and do the width of our cutting bed is about 60 centimeters or 600 millimeters. So either way, I'm going to actually switch this over to centimeters and I'm going to type in 60 here. Although you could type in 600 millimeters, is the exact same number. And then over here, I'm going to get rid of all these zeros. I'm going to type in 30. And then I'm going to click enter, and then I'm just going to close this. And now I've got a printing bed that's the size of ours. So this is 60 centimeters wide and 30 centimeters tall. That's the size of our cutting bed. So when we're laying out parts on here, if the part goes outside of this space, the cutter can't cut it. So we got to make sure we stay inside this space, which for our little phones, our little phone stands aren't going to be a hard thing to do. All right, now time to import the phone stand. In Fusion 360, remember we did two things. We flattened them, we created that outline of them, and then we saved that as a DXF. But the last thing we did, and we saved that to the desktop because we thought it would be easy to find that way. The last thing we did though is we measured how far it was from the top of the phone stand to the bottom of the lower piece, the total length of our layout. So we'll need that number. I have mine right here, 20.616. All right, so I'm going to open my file up, and sometimes it's hard to navigate around in here because it's just weird how they do things. So desktop's an easy, fast way to do it. And sure enough, right there, phone stand DXF, there's my file. I'm going to double click it to open it. Now this part's really important. On this screen, you need to do a read from file. Now what that should do is it should read the size of it perfectly from the DXF file and bring it in right on. For whatever reason right now, it's not doing that, so we're going to have to adjust it manually, which is why we took that measurement of what it really should be. I'll show you what I mean. But make sure you have read from file clicked on. And then click, these other ones are just for different scaling. So you could say, hey, when you bring it in from this file, I want you to cut it in half or double the size of it. So you would use that for this. And this one would size it to a piece of paper. So it would automatically increase it or decrease it to make it fit a piece of paper. But for us, they need to be the exact right size because remember, all these slots are cut. If we make this a little bit too big, these slots are going to be too loose. So we can't just resize it now. All right, now click OK. And it's on its way. Oh, I did that wrong. So what I did is I did file open. And so I'm going to close this. I didn't want file open, actually. I wanted file import. My apologies. And it's the exact same process though. So I'm going to go to my desktop. I'm going to find the DXF, just repeat the process, read from file, click OK. The only difference is that doing it as file open, opened a new file for me. I already have this one set up, so let's use it. Now notice this thing is huge. It's highlighted right now, so look at it right now. It is, I'm gonna change up here for millimeters to centimeters. It says it's 52.39 centimeters tall and 16.536 wide. And that's a problem because it should only be 20.616, but it's easy to change. Check this out. First of all, if you try to resize this, you could just make this only narrow. You know how sometimes in pictures when you grab them, both sides change at the same time and they shrink together? Well, we want that to happen too. So I'm going to Control Z to undo what I just did. And I'm going to come up here to this little lock button. It's right between the width and the height at the top of the screen. If I click that locked, that means that they're going to change together now. So all I have to do is know one number. That 52 should be 20.616. 20.616. Your number will be different than mine. I mean, probably. It seems unlikely to be the same. So make sure you use your number, not my number, or it's going to make this little opening here too narrow or too wide. It's not a good thing. And then hit enter. And notice this is the huge, we have this great big laser cutter. So this is pretty small compared to that great big bed. So that's going to make a lot of sense. This is the size of piece of wood that we cut from. So you can see it looks like it's pretty much in the right place right there. Now, one thing I noticed is it is kind of upside down. Like if I put an image on this right now facing up, it's going to be upside down on my phone stand. So I want to actually flip this image over to meet it. I'll show you an easy way of doing that. One way is if you click on it again. This is really weird for this program. What you get is rotation handles. So instead of making it bigger, it can rotate it. If you hold down the control key, it'll snap it to like vertical positions. If you don't hold on the control key, it can be hard to really line it up vertically perfectly. So I like to hold down the control key and then it kind of snaps when you get close to vertical. Now so I'm going to Control Z, I'm going to undo that. The way I did that again, remember you click on it once, that gives you a resize handle, so it makes it larger and smaller. If you click on it a second time, it gives you a rotation handle, which allows you to rotate it around. Hold down Control, it locks to a spot. And if you click on it again, it goes back to the resize. So it just toggles between resize and rotation handles. So now we've got it rotated the right way, but let me undo that. There's another way of doing this. So if I click on it, I just go up here to these rotation buttons and say, hey, rotate it 90 degrees, boom, boom, and I'm around. I can go 90 degrees the other way, go around that way. So everything's good. So now I've got it rotated right side up. Now my laser cutter has two different cuts. It can cut a hard cut, which means it goes all the way through. So it's a high power cut that slices through the wood completely. And then it has a low power cut that just zips over the edges like this, tracing out the picture you want on your phone stand. And there's the way we tell the laser which one to do, whether to cut all the way through or just make an etch, is with color. Anything that's a bright red color, and I'll show you exactly what color it is in a second, that is going to be a cut all the way through. So red is cut through, and anything black is the etching stuff. So we're going to put an image on here and make sure the image is black, and that the outline that we want to cut through is red. So let's do the outline first. So what we're going to do is highlight our whole thing again, and we're going to come up here to Object, and we're going to do to Fill and Stroke. That's one way to do it. That'll open this panel up over here. The other way, if your panel is closed, is down here in the lower left-hand corner. Notice there's a Fill and a Stroke down here. If you click on the Unset, it will also bring up a Fill and Stroke menu here. So there are two parts to any object in Inkscape. There's the fill, which is what color is on the inside of it. And then there's what's called the stroke, which is the line on the outside. And the stroke, you can change the color, you can change the thickness, you can do all kinds, you can make it dashed lines, all kinds of weird stuff. We're going to stick with the basics and just change its color. So fill here, we want this no fill. We don't want any color in the middle. That way the laser won't accidentally cut anything inside here. And then we're going to go over here to stroke, and we're going to put a color on stroke. So we're going to click on flat color, and we want it to be the reddest red there is. Now, all colors on a computer screen are made by mixing 3 colors together. So each little pixel on your screen, if you drop a drop of water on the screen, just like splash a drop of water on your screen, will act like a magnifying lens, and you can actually see the little pixels of your screen. Each little pixel is made of a little red bar, blue bar, and green bar that can glow at different brightnesses. There are 3 little lights in there. And so the amount of each one gives you the color it is. So you can see on my screen, let me zoom in a little bit so you can see a little better. You can see as I add more and more red to this, we go away from, notice right now there's 0 red, 0 green, 0 blue. 0 color is black. The line is black right now. So right now if we printed this on our laser, if we put it to the laser cutter, it would just etch that black line on there and it wouldn't actually cut through. So that would be really frustrating. So if I increase the amount of red, notice how the red the black turns from black to more and more and more red. Now, if I get all the way to here, 255 is the largest amount of a color I can have of that particular color. So this color right now has all red, no green, no blue. Well, the cool thing is, look what happens. If I were to add green to this, it shows you what would happen as you add green. If you add a little bit of green, it turns orangish. You add a whole bunch of green, it turns yellow, which is kind of funny, right? And as I do this, notice how this one changes as well. Oh my gosh. So this one, if I add blue, I get yellow, less and less yellow. All the way over here, I get white. Now my lines are white. But I don't want that. So I'm going to change this back to 0. So I want all red because it's a cut line. Okay. And this last one is opacity. It means how transparent is it. And we want it to be have no transparency. We want it to be a solid line, so we're going to leave this as 100. A lot of times on programs, you won't see this 4th number. And then down here is what's called the RGB number. So this FF refers to the number 255, and then 00 is this one, and then the next 00 is that 0. So this is something you would see like on a web page defining what color something is. They can be all kinds. Notice what happens when I slide this over. These start changing. So there's C's and F's and 8's and B's and 1's and 9's and 7's. It's called hexadecimal. It's a really cool thing, but we don't have time to get into it now. The key thing here is any line that we want cut has to be 255 in red, 0 and 0. If it's 254, the laser won't see it. It won't be like, hey, that's close enough. It's got to be the exact right color of 255, 00. That's a good number to remember. All right, I'm going to zoom back out. Now, the last thing you have to do, I had some real problems with the laser this year of it not wanting to cut these lines if they're too overly grouped. So really, all these lines are made up of groups of individual lines kind of grouped together, like all these little pieces. So what we're going to do is ungroup them completely and then group them together just once, because right now they might be grouped together multiple times. To ungroup, we highlight it, we go on it somewhere and right-click and go down to ungroup. Okay, you can see now it has a separate piece for this. It's a different group now. And this one down here is a different group. So now there's 3 pieces. This one, the old big one, and the little inside one. If I right click again, notice how there's no ungroup left. That means I've fully ungrouped everything. And then I just need to highlight them again, or they're already highlighted, and just group them back one more time. Whoa, where'd you go? So I'm going to highlight them again. I'm going to unclick off of them, right click on them, and oh, there it goes. For some reason now it says group. Okay, so now I can do the grouping, and now they're grouped back together as one. The reason I want to group them back together as one is if I don't group them back together, sorry. So I just ungroup them again. If I don't group them back together and I move this one, it leaves the little slot behind, and it's hard to get it back in the right place. So I'm going to Control Z to undo the move. I'm going to go back and do the grouping over again. I'm going to highlight everything. I'm going to right click on one of the lines and then hit group, and then I'll put them all together again. That part's done. My cut lines are set, and I am ready to have this thing have a picture put on it and then export it out to Fusion or to the laser cutter. So yeah, at this point, this video is over, and the next video will focus on how to take an image and process it down and clip it and rotate it and get everything just right to put it right in the middle of this and make it look really cool.